I'm so glad to be here again with my fellow Smith siblings. I think this is the third class I have done for the Alumni Association, and I really enjoy being able to give back to Smith in this way. I was telling Lindsay earlier, it just makes me feel really good to connect with other alums and just to spread my love of cooking. Now, and again, we're going to be making stuffing croquettes. So I was telling Lindsay before everybody logged on, I love stuffing and I love anything that's a fried ball. So I make stuffing croquettes, I make stuffing waffles, I make stuffing muffins. Generally, I make those before I actually make a pure unadulterated loaf of stuffing. Or casserole of stuffing. I also have been really into the croquettes and, fried arancini, so the rice balls lately. So that's kind of been my wheelhouse. I thought this would be really fun and unusual Thanksgiving side dish. So we're going to go through everything soup to nuts. I don't know who's actually participating in cooking at home or if you're just observing me more like a demo. So I'm going to pace myself as if you're cooking along. On that note, if I'm going too fast, please don't hesitate to type in the chat. I'm happy to, I will check the chat. So will Lindsay. If I need to repeat, okay, I see someone's cooking, great. So I'll make sure not to skip any steps. I have prepared a lot of my ingredients in advance just to keep things moving, but I'm happy to take a pause if some of you at home need to catch up with me. So just alert me if I'm moving too fast, okay? On that note, let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is actually turn your oven on to 350 degrees. So we're going to start with 4 cups of bread. I'm using I recommended a country white. And PS, this is vegetarian. You can use chicken stock, but I always make sure to create recipes that are vegetarian, or at least have the option of being vegetarian. So we're going to cut our bread into small cubes. Why do we do that? We're making croutons. It's for texture. We also want to dry them out because we're going to be adding more moisture into the stuffing later. And it actually works better if we dry out the breadcrumbs. I'm sure a lot of you know this from making regular stuffing. We're essentially going to make a regular stuffing, but instead of baking it, we're going to create croquettes. So oven's on to 350. You're probably going to need anywhere from 6 pieces of bread, anywhere from 4 to 8, depending on your bread. So there's a wide range there. I am using a brioche. I found a brioche instead of a country white, but you can really use any type of bread. I generally recommend a nice soft bread. Something like a sourdough is really nice for a baked stuffing, but when we're doing a stuffing like this, you want the bread to be really soft so we can end up packing it. You want it to absorb liquid well, and we're going to be packing it into balls, so it's got to be able to absorb the moisture. So get yourself a baking sheet, a cookie sheet, a rimmed baking sheet, and we're going to want a measuring cup. So we're going to bake this for 10 minutes on the tray. As for doing regular cups or packed cups, I'm doing a light packed cup. So a regular cup would just be throwing it in the cup and leaving it alone. I'm packing it down ever so slightly, but not too hard. I don't want to turn this into bread mush immediately. So the 3 pieces for me yields 2 cups. It depends, again, it depends on the size of your bread, how much you're going to need, the size of your slices. As you can see, I am including the crust. Waste not, want not. I try not to create food waste if necessary. And you'll hear me talking about food waste quite a bit because that's one of my passions, is composting and avoiding food waste. And I'm not perfect, but I do the best I can. Okay, let's see. So someone says they have dried bread already. That will totally work. So if you're using dry bread or croutons, just skip this step. Just measure out 4 cups of your croutons, your dried bread, and put it in a bowl. I'm making sure I'm not missing any of the chat. So if I pause and stare into the distance, that's what I'm doing. All right. So my oven's not quite at 350. I should have turned it on ahead of time, but I did not. My oven's slow to heat, but that's okay. We can move on to the next step while I'm waiting for that to heat up. Everybody's oven heats up at different rates. So if your oven is ready to go, put your bread in the oven and set yourself a 10-minute timer. You'll want the bread to toast for about 10 minutes. We don't have to add any olive oil, no salt and pepper. Just go ahead and stick that in the oven. Okay, so next up, you're gonna need a large skillet. And when we cook over here, I'll move you guys to the kitchen. But for now, I'm gonna have you over in this corner. So get yourself a nice large pan because we're gonna saute our vegetables. And I'm actually going to put them right in the pan. It's a little shortcut I do sometimes. I'm not even going to heat up the oil before I get cooking. I know it's not very professional, but sometimes I take this shortcut. So I've got 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 2 tablespoons of butter. I use both for flavor. You can do all butter or all olive oil. I like to diversify my butters and oils. So I'm using a nice high quality olive oil. I just think it makes a difference in all my cooking to use a good olive oil, and I'm using a little bit of butter. Again, you can use one or the other, or you can combine. So you need 4 tablespoons of butter or oil in total. I'm doing 2 tablespoons of both. So I'm just gonna move this over here for now. And I'm gonna prepare my vegetables. I'm checking my oven. My oven, it's almost at 350. So I'm just gonna get it going for the sake of moving the class along. I'm gonna set a 10-minute timer. I may need a little extra time, but since we're just toasting it, you know, if you're at 300 degrees, you can always just stick it in and get it going, get it on the move. So I've got an onion here. You can use any onion you have. You can use a white onion, a Vidalia onion, a plain yellow onion. You can even use a red onion. It may turn your stuffing a little bit purple, but there's nothing wrong with it. Anything will do. Again, use what you've got. And I do have a lot of red onion, but since I'm the instructor, I thought I'd be a purist. But I always say when I'm cooking, I say to myself, what's in the fridge? I look in the fridge. If I have a recipe that requires a white onion, but all I have is a red onion, you know, oftentimes if I'm just cooking for my family, it doesn't matter. I just use what I've got. I'm trying to avoid waste. So sometimes you can use a shallot instead of an onion, or an onion instead of a shallot. So I've got a half onion here. I need about a half cup of chopped onion. So I'm just gonna set this other onion aside. If you have a small onion, you might need the whole thing. So you're gonna wanna get your half cup measuring cup. And I'm gonna bring this closer because I feel like a lot of people don't know the proper technique for cutting an onion. And a lot of people do. So if I'm being redundant, just excuse me. Okay, I think she said someone asked, can you please repeat? Okay, sorry, I missed that. The butter part. I was using 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of olive oil, but you can use 4 tablespoons of olive oil or 4 tablespoons of butter. I just try to reduce, since these are deep fried, you know, you could go all the way and use pure butter. If you're feeling it, since it's deep fried, you might as well go all the way, or since it's deep fried, you may try to step back and try to be a little more healthy and use olive oil instead of butter. So I was just trying to say you could use 2 tablespoons olive oil, 2 tablespoons butter, or all olive oil, all butter. So I hope that clarifies. As for cutting the onion, I'm going in with my knife. So I take the tip, I press down, and I'm making strips. I'm not going all the way to the end. And then I'm going to go in this way. I'm basically creating a gingham pattern within the onion. my goal with cutting onion is just to result in as few tears as possible for myself and the members of my household who are very sensitive. So this results in fewer knife cuts. The fewer knife cuts, the better when it comes to onion tears. So now I get a nice pure dice without needing to run my knife over the onion over and over again. But if you have your method, by all means, do what you're comfortable with. I'm not about reinventing the wheel for you unless you want to learn a new technique. So as you can see, I have a little more than a half cup of onion, and I'm just going to use it all. I'm not going to throw the little bit away or attempt to save the tablespoon of onion I have there. I'm just going to use all of it. So oftentimes when I do this, I was saying before I cheat, I'll just throw this right in with the unheated olive oil. But I think I'll do it the correct way since I'm teaching you guys. So I've got that. I've got my onion. I'm going to need 2/3 cup of celery. So I've got my 1/3 cup here. So a little hack for my celery is if I have little dirty pieces here, or I find that the celery is really fibrous, I'll just run my vegetable peeler over the celery. It removes the fibrous strings and you'll end up with a cleaner piece of celery. So this is not a necessary step, but I think it makes the celery pieces a little easier to cut, a little easier to bite into. So again, we need 2/3 cup diced celery. I'm cutting it into strips. And as you can see, I'm not a super ridiculously fast chopper. I'd rather be safe, especially when teaching. So this is what I would do to get a general diced piece of celery. And this can go in the bowl with the onions. I always curl my fingertips under as well. And I'll put my whole being into the screen again. Let me just finish this up because I know you can only see my torso and my arms here. Okay, so you need about 2 pieces of celery. I'm going to do the same here. This particular batch of celery is very fibrous. You can even save these pieces if you're going to make stock, a vegetable stock or a chicken stock. So the celery is diced. So I'll demonstrate again with my second piece of celery. Pardon me if I ran through that too quickly. So I'm just discarding the end pieces, but as I was saying, you can save those and freeze them. You can make a bag or a large Tupperware full of vegetable scraps and you can make stock with them later. So I'm going to dice these. So I'm making strips to start out, and then I'm going to dice the strips. So we want pretty small chunks. And again, if this yields a little more than 2/3 cup or a little bit less than 2/3 cup, then just utilize what you've cut or diced. So I think for me, I'm going to have just slightly less. If you really want to be a stickler for accuracy, you can dice up a little more, but that's good enough. You know, we're making stuffing croquettes. We're not, you know, it's a little untraditional and the flavors meld together. I'm not too worried about being a little bit short of a particular vegetable. So we're going to start cooking that in a second, but we also need, I figured we'll prep all our mise en place right now. So we want to get all our ingredients ready to go. So when we start cooking, we're able to hit the ground running. I'm actually going to say, take a pause and check in on your bread. So our goal is just to dry out the bread. So if you look at your bread and it's still a little bit moist, just let it continue to cook. If you feel like your bread is toasted, like the effect of, we're just toasting it. You don't have to, doesn't have to crumble. It just has to have a nice sort of light toasted color. Mine still needs to go a little bit longer. So FYI, I'm making a full recipe here. So it makes about 10 to 12 croquettes. If you're feeding a family of 4, 5, that's perfect. If you're cooking by yourself, it's gonna make quite a bit. What I would recommend, actually, if you're not gonna make them all, is creating the balls. And before you fry them, you can put them on a tray and freeze them. And when you're ready to cook them, you just defrost them in the refrigerator. But you can freeze the stuffing before it's cooked, but we'll get to that. So I probably should have prefaced the lesson with saying this does make a hearty dozen croquettes. So again, if you're cooking alone, if you're by yourself, or if there's just 2 of you, you may want to half the recipe. So I like a lot of garlic, as Lindsay and I were discussing. I like a lot of garlic. So I'm using 4 garlic cloves. If you want to go a little more mild, you can do 2 to 3. I've already prepped 3 just so you wouldn't have to see me mincing 3 garlic cloves on screen. If you have a garlic press, by all means, use your garlic press. I'm all about hacks and shortcuts. I'm not a stickler for being chefy in that way, but I will show you how to dice. I'll show you a couple of tricks for dicing. So when you're gonna dice, if you're a purist and you're adamantly against garlic presses, what you're gonna wanna do is sort of roughly mince your garlic. And this is just 1 clove here because I pre-minced the rest of my garlic. What I do is I take a pinch of salt and put that right on top of the garlic. It brings out the enzymes, so the garlic becomes a little sticky. It actually helps break it down faster, and it prevents your garlic from flying willy-nilly all over your cutting board. So it helps from the perspective of getting your garlic to stay put, but it also technically helps break it down in a more rapid fashion. So you're likely to get a proper mince quicker than if you did not use salt. That's a little restaurant trick. So it can be as finely diced as you want it to be. You don't have to go crazy. You know, if there's some texture, that's okay. So we're gonna set these ingredients aside. I'm gonna set these by the stove. We're not quite there yet. We have a couple other ingredients we're gonna work out. I am still waiting for my breadcrumbs to finish. It's okay if they're not done. If your breadcrumbs are complete, stick them in a good sized bowl. You're gonna want a large-ish bowl. Okay, so we've got our onion, we've got our celery. Let me see, garlic and sage. So we're gonna prep the sage, then we're gonna start cooking. So we actually create the stuffing before we fry it. So I have a large pile of sage. We want approximately 2 tablespoons. I like a lot of sage, and when you're frying, when you're deep frying like we're gonna do, some of the more potent flavors actually get lost in the frying oil. They will escape a little bit, or they will dumb down a bit. So I would go really overboard when it comes to the fresh sage. I really like the flavor. Frankly, I don't think you can use enough sage. Oh, so someone said celery. So someone asked about the apples. Hey, Karen, we're getting to the apples. So that's not actually something that we're gonna cook on the stove. So those are gonna go in raw. So we're gonna cut those, or we're gonna cut our apple while we're cooking our aromatics. So there is an apple going in here. If you have a strong aversion to fruit in your stuffing, I know some people cannot stand that, and I respect that. So please just leave that out. I also like pear in my stuffing, but I find that it's a little too soft for the stuffing croquettes. So I'm chopping up way more than I need, and that's okay. I can refrigerate this and use it later. You can also freeze your herbs. So how much sage? We're going to use approximately 2 tablespoons. If you want to throw in a little extra, yeah, I probably have almost a 1/4 cup here. I'm not going to go with the full 1/4 cup, but I might do 3 tablespoons just because personally I really love it. So I always consider a recipe a blueprint. Something like this, a rustic sort of recipe, is a blueprint for flavor. So if you, wait, I couldn't get fresh sage. So you can use dried. Dried sage is actually, dried herbs in general are stronger than fresh herbs. I know that sounds counterintuitive. The fresh herbs are more aromatic, but the dried herbs are stronger. So if you're going with dried sage, you might want to do a tablespoon to a tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon. So you can, so Karen asked about tossing in some thyme. Like I said, this is a blueprint for flavor. If you have a way you make your stuffing, if you want to add multiple types of herbs, be my guest. And I love it. I want you guys to improvise. I want you to throw in your favorite herbs. So if you're really into thyme and sage, or you want to replace the thyme or the sage with rosemary. So look, it ended up being about 2 tablespoons and a little more. So I'm just going to throw in extra because I'm a fan. So thyme, throw in some thyme. Again, if you're doing a dried sage, I would do about half of what the recipe asks for with fresh. So that's a rule of thumb for general. And your hands get sticky sometimes after chopping sage. So give them a little rinse. We're gonna go over the stove. I'm gonna pull out my breadcrumbs. I can tell they're done. I can smell them. Yes. So let me show you what we're looking for here. You're looking for a nice, like a crouton. It's gonna be crispy. We just pulled the moisture out because I know it seems kind of funny to remove the moisture and then add more moisture with our ingredients list, but this is how we generally make stuffing. You use a dried crouton, so it works well with this. So don't forget to turn your oven off. I have just pardon me, don't try this at home. I'm having a little issues with my middle burner here, so I end up having to light it with a match. So pretend you're not seeing this, okay? Because it's slightly, I'm trying to, slightly MacGyver-y here. I don't like to get my match too close, so I use a scissors instead of a pair of tongs to light my middle burner. And I have a whole story about my middle burner, but that's for another day. All right, so my middle burner is my strongest one, and it's not igniting, so only ignites about 1 out of 4 times. So I'm gonna move you guys over to my stove. And again, please tell me if I've neglected anything or if I'm moving too quickly. Okay, so I'm gonna heat up my oil and butter here. I'm also going to move my breadcrumbs into this large bowl. And I'm gonna set that aside. So now we're gonna cook just the onions and celery, not the garlic yet. So the garlic's gonna go in after a good handful of minutes. So we're gonna saute this for about 5 minutes. And we're gonna somewhat continuously stir it around because we don't want it to brown. We just want it to get nice and soft. So set your breadcrumbs aside. We'll return to those shortly. All right, so once your butter mixture heats up, you're gonna put in your first round of aromatics. So you're gonna do your onion and your garlic. And you're gonna stir that. It's okay to leave it on high. You can adjust the temperature depending on your burner. We've got a lot of oil in there. so you're less likely to brown your aromatics. So again, we want to make sure we don't brown them. We want to just cook them. We want to soften them. So the next batch of ingredients, so you can set, I'm going to set a 5-minute timer. I normally don't set timers when I cook my aromatics, but I'm going to do it just for the sake of consistency for you guys. So our next ingredients that we'll throw in are the sage and the garlic, and we'll do that simultaneously once our onion and our celery are softened. So let's see, I'm checking the chat. So yes, so no garlic, Jennifer. It's just the celery and onion cooking at this point. We are going to add our garlic and our sage after 5 minutes. So you're going to want to cook just your celery and your onion. And I'm making sure to use a wooden spoon to move it around because I don't want it to burn. I don't want it to brown. If it ends up slightly brown, that's okay. So I did not salt the onions yet, but I plan to. So thank you. So usually for this particular recipe, I'm in the habit of salting after I add the garlic, but if you want to throw in salt now, go for it. So grab my salt and pepper. So we're going to actually taste this before we add the eggs. So you'll know if you have adequate salt and pepper, but you can add a little bit now if you want to. Like with the garlic, salt sort of helps render your onion a bit. I'm going to turn the heat down. And it just already smells like stuffing. That combination of onions and celery is just that natural stuffing odor. It smells like Thanksgiving, especially with the sage in the air. So let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. No. Okay. So it's starting to become nice and soft, but I'm going to let it go for another few minutes. And you, again, turn your heat down. And now we can prep our apple. So I recommend a green apple or else a Macintosh. Personally, I like the contrast of a tart apple with all the savory flavors of the stuffing. So I don't want to add an apple that's overly sweet, but it's, again, it's your preference. So if you prefer something, like a Pink Lady, or I'm trying to think of some other sweet apples off the top of my head. If you like, a red delicious or a yellow delicious, if you like Macoons, although those are a little on the tart side too. Just, use whatever apple floats your boat. You can also use a slightly unripe pear for this. So I am going to skin my apple. So I want to remove the skin, and I also want to remove the seeds and the core. So if you have one of those if you have one of those utensils where you can pop out the core, feel free to use that. I'm gonna do it the old-fashioned way. No special tools here. All right. So I'm still trying to keep my eye on my stuffing base here. I'm going to turn the heat back up just a little bit. Got about 1 minute left. However, if you feel your onions are soft enough, then don't go the whole 5 minutes. If you set a timer for 5 minutes, but you feel like they're adequately cooked, just jump to the next part where you add your garlic and your sage. So I have about 30 seconds left. So I'm going to let it go another 30 seconds. I'm going to add my garlic and my sage. Okay, so we're about ready to prep our onion. You're also going to need a ½ cup of stock. So you can use chicken stock. You can use a vegetable stock. If you do use a vegetable stock, make sure it's a really light one. I know some brands, like for example, Trader Joe's has an incredibly strong tomatoey flavor. You don't want that strong tomatoey flavor for this. It's going to transform the entire thing. It's going to give it sort of an Italian-y flavor. So I would avoid using that stock. If you only have that Trader Joe's vegetable stock, what I recommend is using 2 tablespoons of that and then the rest water. If you don't have any stock, you can actually just use water. So I threw in my garlic and my sage, and I did remove it from the heat just because my pan is really hot. So this should cook for about a minute, and I am going to hit it with salt and pepper. So the salt and pepper is to taste, and we're actually going to taste the mixture before we add the eggs. So we'll make sure we have a nice balance of salt, which is something that is really important when you're making a croquette, because you want to make sure you bite into it and it's a pleasurable experience if it's undersalted. Again, if you don't eat salt, that's your, I understand you're going to want to leave that out. So you can do things in place of using salt. So if that's a question anyone has, there's some actually pretty good salt alternatives that are sodium free on the market. Okay, so I'm going to continue to cook this for about 30 seconds. And then I'm going to add my apple. So once this is done, the apple actually doesn't go straight into the pan. That'll go into the bowl with the croutons. So you're just cooking the garlic. You don't want to brown it. You're just cooking it so it smells nice, that nice aromatic garlicky smell. We are heavy on the garlic, so you do want to make sure it is slightly cooked. You don't want to throw in raw garlic here. And I'm making sure to move the mixture around so it doesn't burn. I'm pretty content with that. So garlic and sage. Now I'm going to throw that mixture in with the croutons.
And Kate,
And then I'm going to, yes.
sorry to interrupt. There was just a couple of questions about
Okay.
where do we put the stock and did you chop the
Okay.
apple?
So I have not done either of those things yet. So we'll do that together in a second. Thank you, Lindsay.
Absolutely.
Yes. I promise not to do anything sneaky off screen. Okay. Like chop an entire ingredient without you guys knowing. So don't worry, you haven't missed anything. So as for the stock, if you just want to measure out the stock, that's all I have going here. I've not added it yet. So I've mixed in just the onion mixture, and I'm going to move you guys back over to the cutting board. And now we're going to chop the apple. So if you want to go ahead and start chopping your apple, you're welcome to. I like a small dice. But if you want larger chunks, go for that too. So again, I've said this before, it's just a blueprint. My recipe is just a blueprint for whatever flavors you like. So I'm just going to cut part of the apple here. So again, you can use as much apple as you want, as little apple as you want. You can leave it out completely. You can also throw in some, dried fruit if you're really, that's a flavor you really like. I really like dried fruit in my baked stuffing casserole, but I'm not going to do it for this. So I'm just making apple strips, and then I'm going to dice them, and you can bite into it as well. So I go for about half the apple. So I'm going to leave this. I'm not going to utilize this in the recipe. I'm going to stop here, but don't throw that out. It makes a good snack. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut what I have here into a smallish dice. It's about a 1/2 inch dice. An apple's a little hard to dice. I find the pieces go willy-nilly. Okay, so throw that right into your master bowl. So we've got all our aromatics in here. We have our apple, we have our croutons. And I know some of you wanted to know about the stock that's going to go in next. And also grab your salt and pepper. And after we moisten this, we're going to turn our, shouldn't have turned that burner off. I'm going to have to do that little hack again. We're going to turn on our oil because that takes a little to heat up. So the stock, I have a half cup, but don't feel like you need to put all of it in there. You actually might not need all of it. So use your hands, get in there with your hands. You're going to want eventually to crush this into a ball. So if your croutons didn't get as crunchy, if they're still somewhat moist, you may not need as much stock. So just go by it based on what your croutons feel like. So I need all of it. We also are going to let this sit and saturate because we want the flavors to infiltrate and saturate the croutons. So it's not just like croutons surrounded by all this good flavor. We really want to get in there and we want it to moisten. So now is when I'm going to taste it. So take a little piece. Give it a taste. Determine if you need more salt. I definitely do. So I'm gonna throw in a little more salt and pepper. For me, that's what's missing. I personally use the chicken stock, but again, you can use water. You can use a light vegetable stock. Again, I would recommend not using a brand that has a particularly strong carroty or, well, carroty is not so bad for this because carrots remind me of Thanksgiving, but you just want to avoid anything that's too tomatoey because it really will alter the flavor. Okay, that's good. And it is a little awkward. It's a little mushy. It's not really an ideal texture, and it doesn't hit those notes. Eating soggy, uncooked stuff. So keep that in mind. It's not going to have a great flavor profile right at this minute. If you have extra sage and you're feeling it, throw that in. I'm just going to use this instead of letting it go to waste. We were going to add 2 eggs. That one will bind it. Turn on your oil. Let me show you how much oil you need. So I use an entire container of oil, a small container of oil. So it's about, I'm going to do an overhead shot here. I have about 1 inch of oil in a medium-sized pan. I'm not sure if you guys can see where my oil line is. I'm trying to get a good shot here. So it's about up to here. Maybe not even quite an inch. And that actually is sufficient because you're gonna spin your croquettes around. You don't have to have them completely submerged in the oil. So turning them on now, turn it on now. Ah, look, it lit. You guys must be my good luck charms. Okay, so I'm putting it on medium heat. I don't want it to be on such high heat that it begins to burn. You want to make sure you're actually better off having your, wait, let's see. Oh, someone said, could you use a little white wine? You actually could. Thank you for bringing that up. You could use white wine instead of the stock. So you could mix like 2 tablespoons of white wine with water, or else mix the 2 tablespoons with chicken stock or mix the 2 tablespoons with vegetable stock. So thank you for that suggestion. And I do use white wine when I make a traditional stuffing. Okay, so the oil. So you're better off having your oil at too low heat than bringing it to too high a temperature and burning your oil. So that's why I put it on middle ground when I'm doing my other prep work here. So we're gonna need 4 eggs in total. 2 eggs we're gonna crack. 2 eggs are gonna go into the stuffing. So we don't have to separate the eggs in terms of whites and yolks, but you're gonna keep 2 eggs and 2 eggs, and so 4 eggs total, but separate. So we're doing 2 eggs into our first little bowl, and I always do my eggs straight into a small bowl to avoid getting eggshells in my master bowl. So I'm gonna mix this up. I'm gonna whisk it. Sorry about that noise. I'm gonna whisk this lightly. And then I'm gonna mix it with my stuffing. And I'm not gonna go in with my hands because I don't wanna get egg all over my hands. So I'm gonna give this a good mix. And we really want this to saturate and get nice and soft while the oil heats. While we're waiting for this to get soft, we're going to make our dip. So I also have 2 eggs that I have not cracked. We might as well crack them. So there's my stuffing mixture. We've got our 2 eggs here, and this is actually for, this is kind of like making arancini, if you guys have ever made that. Rice balls, Italian rice balls, you're gonna do breadcrumbs. Arancini use panko, but we're gonna use standard breadcrumbs. If you have panko, you can use those. So 2 eggs. We're gonna roll our croquettes in flour. And I'll go through those ingredients after we make our dip. The dip is super duper easy. I felt like I couldn't come up with the best description of it for this class, so I just called it spicy cranberry dip, but it's just cranberry sauce and Dijon. And you can always embellish it if you want it a little more spicy. You can add sriracha, you can add red pepper flakes. So what do? I do a 1/2 cup of canned cranberry sauce, nothing special, just the canned stuff. For this, it's a 1/2 cup. And I like the can because it, once you beat it, you're left with a nice smooth texture. If you're doing homemade sauce, you're gonna have the cranberry chunks. So I'm just gonna whisk it until I get some of the lumps out. This is as simple as it gets.
Yeah.
So whole or jellied. So I'm using the jelly. So use what you've got. If you've got cranberry sauce with chunks of cranberries, that's gonna be really tasty too. Let me see, whole berry or jelly. So again, I'm using jelly cranberry sauce, but if you've got anything from a can will do. And if you prefer homemade, by all means, go for it, use that. So I also add a little bit of black pepper. I start with just a pinch. I don't want to go overboard with the spice. You can always add more, but you can't take away. So I also use 2 to 3 teaspoons of Dijon. I have that pre-measured out. So this is where we get our spiciness, is from the mustard. And these flavors really taste good together. It lends itself well to a nice dipping sauce. You can hit it with a pinch of salt. So Dijon is 2 to 3 teaspoons, not tablespoons. So 3 teaspoons equals a tablespoon, but I wasn't sure if a full tablespoon was too much for some of you. I lost you. What is in the bowl? Okay. Okay, so 2 eggs. I'm backtracking a bit. So 2 eggs went into the stuffing mixture. So we're trying to soften it so we can make our croquettes. The second 2 eggs I beat and are just sitting aside now. So we're going to get to that in a minute. In the bowl, it's a 1/2 cup of canned cranberry. So I used jellied cranberry sauce. So a half cup, and then 2 to 3 teaspoons of Dijon. I also added a pinch of black pepper. So you can taste your sauce, and I can repeat that again. So it's a half cup of cranberry, or canned cranberry. It's 2 to 3 teaspoons of Dijon and a pinch of black pepper. If you want it spicier, you can add more Dijon. If you want the mustard flavor, you can add like a tiny bit of sriracha. You can add some red pepper flakes. It's good. I like this. I made it before. The leftovers I use for sandwiches. It's good with a turkey sandwich or a cheese sandwich. So I'm adding just a pinch of salt and a little more black pepper. And I'm whisking it pretty heavily to get a smooth texture. So when you actually serve these, you can put a little bit of the sauce on the bottom of the plate. If you actually like the flavor of the sauce, it might not be everybody's cup of tea. If you don't like it, not offended at all, don't worry about it. But I actually, when I made this recipe originally, and I made this sauce, I sort of spread a little bit on the bottom of the plate before I serve them. It's really pretty, and it's a nice way to get the sauce on every piece as well. Okay, so take a minute and tidy your spaces. I'm gonna check my oil. You want to make sure your oil does not get too hot. You know it's heating up when you can see little legs in your oil, like little lines. It kind of looks like an oil slick. So that's when you know that it's starting to heat up. And I'll tell you how to test to see if your oil is done. So now, why did I flip my cutting board? Just because the other side was a bit dirty. I just wanted to start with a fresh space. So here are my 2 eggs. I'm going to set up a little station here. I've got my eggs. Ooh. So you want your eggs there. And if your filling is adequately salted, you don't have to salt any of these. So we have about 3/4 cup of flour. It's all-purpose flour I'm using. Again, no salt and pepper in there. I don't feel like I need to flavor the breadcrumbs because I think there's ample flavor in the stuffing itself. So I'm going to start with my flour. I've got my eggs, and I have 1 cup of plain breadcrumbs. So not Italian style, plain breadcrumbs. Italian style, again, you'll end up with a more Italian tasting stuffing. You're also going to want some sort of tray. You're going to want one for making the croquettes, and you're also going to want a clean one with some paper towels. Can you use the air fryer feature in the oven? So the flour, it's 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour and 1 cup of breadcrumbs. I'm not sure. Do you have an air fryer feature on your oven? I'm dying to know what kind of oven that is. I'm curious. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I've actually never used an air fryer, and I really think I need to get one. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, it's GE. Oh, okay. I have a convection oven, but I don't have the air fryer. I think you could bake this. You're not going to get, regular oven. You bake it, you're not going to get necessarily the crispiness that you would get if you fry them. But, if you're trying to have less oil in your system, do what works for you. And I'm curious to know if these come out good in the air fryer. I don't see why not. So I'm rolling out a ball. My stuffing's soft enough. It's about the size of a golf ball, like you're making a meatball. You can also do them a little smaller if you want. I think I'm going to do this one a little smaller. And then you're going to drop it into your flour, and you're going to coat it in your flour. And then what I do is I always pick it up and kind of re-roll it. So I have 1 cup of breadcrumbs. I think I already answered your question. Amanda, but in case I neglected that, it's 1 cup of breadcrumbs. So first into the breadcrumbs, then into the egg, or first into the flour rather, sorry. Flour, then egg, then breadcrumbs. And as I roll it in the breadcrumbs, I kind of, it's going to be a little lumpy because it's stuffing. So keep that in mind. You're going to not get nice smooth balls. Then I place it right on my tray here. And again, your oil's heating up. So keep your eyes on that. And I see we're at 5:52 East Coast time. So Lindsay, tell me if you need to keep me on track, feel free to let me know. I'll try not to go too much past 6. So I think
it's no problem on our end too. And so.
Okay. And it definitely won't go. I can't see us going past 6:15. So I think we're going to be okay. So if your hands, someone said it's pretty. I don't know why I'm Milanesa. I don't know what that is. Ooh, I have to drop So yes, as someone mentioned, leftover Thanksgiving stuffing croquettes. The whole point of this is for you to use your leftovers. So you won't actually have to go through the process of making your stuffing. If you have, I'm going to wash my hands. If your hands get goopy like this, just start washing them. And I'm going to make 2 more balls and then I'm going to start frying them. So I can just keep everything moving. If some of you have to drop off, you have the recipe and you can always email me with any questions. I'm going to make sure to put my info in the chat. I'm not exactly the Butterball hotline, but I will answer any of your Thanksgiving questions. So you can always email me. I always tell all my students this: what you take in a class, you can email me. And a lot of Smithies do email me for recipe suggestions, or I got a great question the other day about waffle irons. So my stuffing mixture is clearly way too moist and I can't seem to get these balls to. Let's see if they're falling apart. You can throw in, if you have any more bread, you could throw in, Nanesa is like the meat breaded. Oh, okay. Yes. Sorry. Yes, exactly. It is kind of like, Milanese chicken or, but back to your question. I'm sorry. I'm jumping all around. If your mixture is way too wet, try adding a little more bread. If you have bread, don't even worry about toasting it. Just add a tiny bit more bread. But mine hold together pretty well. They're soft. There's no denying that, but they're not completely falling apart. Let me know if anyone else is having that problem. And as far as leftovers from Thanksgiving, if you have stuffing and mashed potatoes and turkey, if you're a turkey eater, you can turn that into croquette. So I'm going to start frying these couple of balls here. So you can turn all those things. You just chop up the meat, add a little mashed potatoes. You can use the mashed potatoes instead of the eggs, just as a binding agent. And then your leftover stuffing, and you can fry it the next day and refresh it. You can also put it in your waffle maker. Or, see, I'm going to get way less than 12 balls because I made them gigantic. So keep that in mind. The size of your croquettes determines how many you will get. If you make really small ones, you'll get a lot more, obviously. And mine ended up more like mini tennis balls. Okay, so in order to determine if your oil's ready, you can take some of your breadcrumbs and throw them in. And mine are just kind of floating to the bottom, excuse me. So I know my oil's not hot enough. So I'm throwing a little more, and they should sizzle. But you also don't want them to be, if they brown instantaneously, then the croquettes are going to burn, because the croquettes need to cook about 4 minutes. They need to be in the oil. Remember, there's raw egg. So you need to be able to cook them all the way through. So they need the full 3 to 4 minutes in there in order for the middle to cook. So let me know, Kim, if that worked, if you added a little more bread to absorb some of the moisture. It really depends. There's so many. So the ideal temp is 350 degrees. So that's another thing you can do. If you have a thermometer, you can absolutely use that. So you want it to be about 350 degrees. So if you have like a candy thermometer, you can definitely use that. So
And
it takes a,
Kate,
yeah.
Kim said your genius is working. So
Yay!
yay.
So like a lot of other recipes, there's so many variables involved, like how hot is your kitchen? How hot did your oven get, and how moist or dry is the bread? How much stock did you add? You know, there's a lot kind of going on there. How big were your eggs? Your large eggs may be a lot larger than my large eggs, because a lot of large eggs now are actually jumbo, and a lot of medium eggs are what we used to call a large egg. So everything's supersized. That includes eggs. So your ingredients came out slightly different than mine, because, you know, we're in 2 different kitchens, 2 different size eggs, et cetera, et cetera. So when you drop your balls into your hot oil, and my oil, I think, is just about ready, but I'm going to start. I always start with 1. I want to test out the oil, so I don't put them all in, and I don't want to drop it like a hot potato, because the oil is going to come splash. It's going to come right back at you. You're going to get a splash. You could potentially get burnt. So I always use a spoon. I'm using a slotted spoon, but use any type of spoon or utensil to drop your croquettes in the oil. I'm going to show you an overhead. My oil might not be quite, let me adjust this. You can't even see my croquette in there. It's blending in a little too happily. So I can tell my oil's hot because it's sizzling. It might not be quite as hot as I want it, but also keep your eyes on what's happening, because it can quickly overheat and then it'll start to brown on the outside, and it'll brown faster than it's cooking. You want it to cook all the way through consistently. So if it cooks too quickly on the outside, you're going to get a deep, dark, very dark brown crust, but it's not going to have the opportunity to cook all the way through. You want the heat to saturate the entire thing. So I'm going to let my first ball go about 4 minutes, and then I'm going to start adding additional balls. So once my first one starts looking good, and it's turning brown, but it's not overly brown. So you want it to be a nice golden brown. And if you notice it's browning too quickly, so my oil's really starting to dance and jump around in the bowl, which is a good thing. It's dancing and jumping around, so it's happy, but you don't want to get it to get so happy that it does its job too quickly. So it's good to have an oil thermometer. I don't often use them when I do these classes because it's not something everyone has in their household. So now I'm going to add, I think I'm going to add my others because the oil is happy. So I'm just going to keep an eye on the timer. I have 2 minutes left for my first one. So I know when this timer goes off that I have to add an additional minute or 2 to my timer. And you're going to want to make sure you move them around so they're cooked evenly on all sides. My second tray is covered. Sorry, the lighting just gets really poor in here when it gets dark. So my second tray, I have some paper towels to catch the oil. And if it gets too hot as well, your croquettes might start to crack a little bit, but you want them to hold their shape. You want them to brown. I've got about 1 minute on my first. So while those are cooking, I'm going to continue to create croquettes. So if you have your station at another part of the kitchen, just bring it over to your frying station, so you can continue to roll and dip while you fry. You know, if you feel like you can multitask. If not, just wait until you're done with your first batch. So I've got about 45 seconds on my first one. It is looking really nice. So they should look like falafel. Let me make sure. No, nothing in the chat. Please update me if you have any questions. So I was talking about freezing. If you're gonna freeze these, you're probably gonna wanna do it after you create the balls, but before you dip in the flour and eggs and breadcrumbs. So if you're gonna freeze them, create a ball just of the stuffing, put it on a tray, freeze them, let them become solid, and then throw them into either a Tupperware or a freezer bag, whatever you use. Okay, so that's my first timer. I'm gonna set a 2-minute timer for my second batch, which is in there simultaneously. So this is perfection, this nice golden brown. And they're gonna be hot as can be, so don't bite into it right away. I probably don't have to tell you guys this, you're adults, but I sometimes get really antsy and then I end up with a terrible burn on the roof of my mouth. It's like when you get pizza at the pizzeria, you can't wait, you just bite into it. And you know, if you're like me, maybe you don't have any regrets that top of the roof mouth burn is worthwhile. I like my food really, really hot, but you know, I don't want you to destroy the roof of your mouth. So let it cool for a minute or two. So is this a total of 6 minutes? So it's 4 minutes. So I had 2 batches going simultaneously. So you're probably not going to want to do it more than 4 minutes. My stuffing didn't. So my stuffing didn't form into balls either. I don't know. I don't think it should be a bread problem. If you used a country white or a brioche, honestly, any bread should really work. So maybe it didn't get dry enough in the oven or too much stock. I'm sorry for those who are not finding success in this. But it should be okay, even if it's really soft. I mean, my stuffing is quite soft, so I kind of have to like manipulate it and press together. It's soft and it's also very liquidy, but it should hold together. I don't know if it's a bread problem. Try adding a little more bread. Okay, so there's my, gonna wash my hands. My second batch should be done. You may need a few extra minutes, give or take. Not a few extra, you may need an extra 30 seconds, potentially an extra minute if your oil's not hot enough. See, I think my oil got a little too cool, so I'm just gonna turn the volume up and allow it to cook for an extra 30 seconds. So again, it should be 4 minutes total. The reason it appeared like 6 minutes is because I put my tester in for 2 minutes. And then at the 2-minute mark, I added an additional batch. So then I pulled one out. So apologies if it looked a little haphazard there with the timing, but it should be 3 maybe 4 minutes, and it should come out like this. So for those of you who are having liquid problems, again, you could chalk it up to the size of your egg. It could be, I really don't think it's the bread. It could be that your house even is warmer than mine. I mean, there's really all sorts of variables. So that's potential that your house is, yeah.
Okay, so there's just another question that came in from Jennifer about the length of cooking and the color. So she said mine are holding their shape, but taking forever to turn brown like yours.
Okay, so turn up the heat if you can. So yours is probably, your oil's not hot enough. So you might need to turn, if yours are taking, 6-7 minutes, then I would try and turn up your oil, but definitely watch it, because you're likely to turn it up too high. It's a really tricky balance with frying. If you're not accustomed to frying, it's really tricky and sensitive. The oil can get too hot in an instant, and then you turn it down, and then it ends up being way too cool. So your best bet is to have an oil thermometer again, but if you're not someone who does a lot of frying, that doesn't necessarily make sense. I'm just off camera washing my hands, by the way. So I'm gonna fry 2 more balls for you guys. I have probably enough filling for another. So I made mine quite big. And I have enough. Here, I'm gonna add 2 more. So I'm gonna add 2, they should sizzle. You can use anything in terms of thermometer. If you have a meat thermometer, you can use that. Any just sort of standard, don't use a thermometer that you would use for your head, obviously, but any sort of kitchen thermometer, whether it's a candy thermometer, a frying thermometer, a meat thermometer, you can use that without a doubt to test your oil temperature. So is there anyone, I'd love to hear, is anyone having success? So it should sizzle nicely. Good, I am glad. Okay. Yay, thank you guys. That's good. I just want to make sure it's not a failure across the board, because then I won't sleep tonight. I don't want to do you folks wrong.
Very tasty too. Some people are already tasting theirs. They look so good. I always say when I'm watching these, and I want to make sure like all the tech's good, but
this is ideal. So guys, it should be like nice and brown. It should look like an arancini, like an Italian rice ball. But sometimes like the ones I've got in here are a little more lumpy because it's been sitting around for a little longer. So they look, you can, it's a little more translucent. You can see the stuffing popping through. So please let me know. This is, the point where we begin to wrap up. And if you have a lot of stuffing left, you continue to roll and fry after we log off. But please do let me know if there are any other questions or issues. If anyone has any general Thanksgiving questions, I'm happy to answer those. I also want to put my info in the chat, so you can check out, you can have my email if you have any questions, but you can also check out my website. And obviously, if anyone wants to join my mailing list, you can do that from my website, and that always makes me very happy. So let me provide that info. No pressure, obviously, but I do a lot of virtual programming. So if you're not local to where I am.
Kate, I'm going to pop your website and your email in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
We've had a lot of fun comments. Jill made hers, she veganized them. And
Ooh.
A lot of people are trying them, saying how delicious they are. And then Jennifer also, Jennifer had commented before about the browning and saying they're not browning as uniformly. And I know you mentioned the oil and the butter in the beginning. She asked if you used canola oil, but it was Was it olive oil and butter?
At the beginning,
Oh, no, sorry, that was for the sauteing. Yeah, the
Okay.
oil you use to fry. Did you just,
oh, so I used an olive oil. I can show you. So it's actually, this is a really cool olive oil. It's local to me. My neighbor makes this.
oh my,
It's called Oiladi, and it's made in Hastings-on-Hudson, New York. It's not made, it's actually bottled in Greece, and she is Greek and her family has an orchard. So they make the olive oil on her family's orchard, and then it is shipped to her in New York and sold in local stores, but you can also find it online, and it is so good. And, I'm not simply biased because she's my neighbor. It really is absolutely phenomenal. And I buy it by the case. When I want it, I go to her garage and I take it out and I Venmo her. So it's pretty cool little olive oil relationship. But I try to use high quality oil in all my cooking because it makes a difference, except when you're dealing with canola oil. Canola oil is canola oil. So, and vegetable oil. So veganized it. So yeah, that's, you can absolutely veganize it by using a flax egg to bind it together. And honestly, you can just roll it straight in the breadcrumbs and leave out the egg.
okay.
So this is my first time successfully frying. Okay, that's a great question about the oil. So never put the hot oil into the garbage can. Don't ever put oil into the sink down the drain, because it's going to create what's called a fatberg eventually in your town. Like the fat basically accumulates in the sewers and causes all sorts of block ups. So don't ever put your oil down the drain unless you're talking like a couple teaspoons or tablespoons of oil. But this amount of oil, please do not throw down the drain. What I do is I wait until it's cool. It's not going to solidify like an animal fat. And I actually have my canola oil or vegetable oils from Trader Joe's. I'm going to wait till it's cool and I'm going to put it back in here. And then sometimes, obviously that renders the plastic non-recyclable. You can also put it in an empty milk carton. So I'm trying to think, you can even line a plastic bag with, I know there's not too many places that have plastic bags anymore, with paper towels and put the oil in and throw it in the garbage can. But I usually put it back in the container, its original container, or an empty milk carton. So I hope that's helpful. You can also put it in a mason jar if you're temporarily looking for a storage place, but as long as wait for the oil to cool down in here. So that's my recommendation. So I'm glad to hear that someone had a first successful fry. That's really awesome.
There's another question about what temp in the oven would you recommend to keep them warm?
To keep them warm, so probably under 200 degrees, 175 to 200. Oh, just egg, cool. Yes, that's a vegan product, just egg. So anyhow, yes, I would keep it at like 150, 175. Anything over 200, it's going to start to cook. Oh, I'm glad you like the sauce.
Yeah, I love that
vegan
comment.
butter.
That sauce, though.
I'm stoked that you guys, some of you veganize these.
There was a question about the sauce.
So I'm seeing here, can you do this in advance by putting batter in fridge until frying? You can. It's going to continue to get softer, so maybe just wait to add, you can add the eggs, but wait to add the broth if you're going to do the batter. So my oil's getting a little hot. This is maybe, so this is still good, but anything beyond that is getting a little too brown. So even the chef here has some oil, as the oil hangs out more and more, you end up needing to play with the temperature. So Lindsay, keep telling me if there's any questions. I don't want to miss anything.
Okay, awesome. There was another question about the sauce. Just saying that it looked more like spread.
So it's not a thin sauce. It is pretty thick. So it's not, it's not like, I'm trying to compare it. It's not like a marinara sauce in terms of texture. It's thicker than that. So it is kind of more like the texture of a spread. So that's why I mentioned before, it's really good on sandwiches. So it does spread really nicely.
I was gonna say that. That sounds
Yeah.
amazing on a
So
sandwich.
it is a very thick dipping sauce.
Okay.
Just FYI, nothing you did wrong if it came out thick. My last croquette here they're getting bigger and bigger as I try to wrap it up.
Oh, good. There was a question about recording. Someone joined late, and I just wanted to mention that this will be posted on the Smith YouTube channel. There's so Smith College YouTube, and there's an alumni webinar playlist. So you can check there. It usually takes about a week or so to get them posted. That it will be up there.
Sorry for the running water.
It's getting cut out by the noise canceling from at least on my end.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Sticky hands.
Okay. Someone said, despite all my problems, delish. I love that.
Oh, good. Yeah, they're tricky in terms of frying in oil and just getting the texture of the batter right. So anything deep fried, which seems, deep fried, it's so simple. It's actually not simple. So people who deep fry really, really, really well, if you go to a restaurant and order something deep fried and it's out of this world, like that's a real skill. It's a really difficult skill to get a hold of and get a handle on.
It's always intimidating to me, but I'm definitely going to try this recipe. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
A few people have asked actually about reusing the oil, if that's possible.
Yes. So if you want to reuse the oil, what you're going to want to do is use a fine mesh strainer and just pass it through there to catch any breadcrumbs that may have fallen by the wayside. Because if you reuse the oil with any of the debris that's in there, it's just going to burn. So you want to purify the oil as much as possible. So strain it out as much as you can to remove any sort of crumbs or pieces, and you can definitely reuse it. So a lot of people use oil. My friend had oil. Her husband is a chef, and he has a vat of oil that's been in the family for like 100 years. I'm not kidding. They've been a family of chefs forever. And what you do is every time you reuse your oil, you want to freshen it up a little bit with some new oil. So eventually it'll taste stale. So you always want to add fresh oil. And, if you're going to reuse your oil over and over, you might want to store it in the fridge as opposed to on the shelf. But he's been using this oil forever. And the more you use it, the more flavorful it gets, as long as you refresh it and make sure to clean out any impurities. But can you definitely fry in olive oil? So you can fry in olive oil, but olive oil fries at a lower temperature. So you just have to be careful because it's way more likely to burn, especially when you're deep frying. So you can absolutely do it, but you just have to keep your eyes peeled and be very careful. So generally when I deep fry, I use oils that fry at a very high temperature, like canola oil, grapeseed oil, vegetable oil. Olive oil fries at a lower temperature. So while I prefer the flavor in a lot of ways, it will burn a lot faster. So I'll refrain from using it when I'm deep frying to this degree, but it can be done.
Okay, and that was not olive oil, right?
No, so I'm using canola oil.
Okay, cool. And Jennifer, she said, sorry to ask you another question, but I love the questions and it's great. So it helps everybody learn.
Yes, please there's no such thing as too many questions. So please ask me. I'm here. you guys can even, like I said, please email me. I love
And
hearing.
Kate, your
Yeah.
email to share with them, is it the same one that I have? I want to just be sure that.
It's the
But-
Kate at Kate Sonders
At Gmail?
Solomon or no, not the Gmail one.
Okay, cool.
So
I wanted, because I figure, I know you have, you know, I have two, and I'm probably,
Yeah.
I'm sorry for emailing.
no, it's okay.
I'm just realizing, because you have your business one. All right. I was gonna
No,
put it
the
in
other
for you,
one,
but-
the other one used to be my business one until I actually got a business one, like a true blue.
Awesome. Yes. Okay. I'm gonna make sure that I like refresh my
Okay.
my email.
And if you guys email me the other one, that's totally fine.
And I'm also going to put the link to the YouTube channel in for folks. Oh, there we go. Ashley. Great. Thanks, Ashley. I was just getting to that.
I just clicked on that too, because I always look for it and can never find it. So I actually just typed in my email.
Yeah. And so
Um,
that's the link directly to the playlist. But if you were to search Smith College and you went to the homepage for it, there's I'm going to go there so I can navigate you. Just along the top, it says home videos playlist. So if you click on playlists, you'll find the alum webinar, Office of Alumni Relations webinar. So
guys, if you break open your,
oh my goodness, that looks so good.
the color's not great. Oh, here we go. That's a little better. Everything's a little dull when it gets dark. I do need that ring light. See, good choice to add the extra sage on my part. All right. So I put in my email and my website. So if you, again, not necessarily the Butterball hotline, but you can always ask me. I love hearing from Smithies, so feel free to ask me any questions.
All right, this is awesome. And I'm seeing so many great comments about how much fun this was. As always, I always joke about this with you, that I'm laughing alongside you, but I never want to like interrupt. And so it's a balance. But I know it's tricky doing webinars and feeling like you're talking into a void, but it's just so much fun to watch. And
Thank you.
don't see your email. Oh, okay. I think you sent it just to the host and the panelists. So
shoot. Okay.
No,
I did. Oh, wait, to host and panel. Oh, yes. So not. So yes. So question, if you have leftover stuffing at Thanksgiving, essentially the point of this is to use your leftover stuffing and not to have to create a whole new stuffing. Like, it's supposed to be a creative way. Obviously, we're not at Thanksgiving yet, so we don't have our stuffing, but this is a creative way to use Thanksgiving leftovers. And you can throw in your, some chopped up turkey. If you have turkey at your dinner, you can throw in a little bit of mashed potatoes for texture, if you have like a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. So definitely, if you have leftover stuffing, if it's really soft, you don't even need to add egg. Like, if it holds together, the purpose of the egg is for binding. So if you find that your stuffing soft enough, then you don't even really need to add eggs. So just sort of gauge it, stick your fingers in and feel it, and you can determine if you need to bind it. So let's see, everyone. So yes, so same technique, but just potentially not needing to add the egg. The egg goes on the outside, just not into the stuffing. So that is my website, guys. And here's my email. Okay. So Butterball hotline is open.
What a fun way to use up leftovers, or to take a traditional dish and change it up a little bit. So any other dipping sauces you recommend for variety?
I don't know. Maybe an aioli, like a garlicky aioli with some fresh herbs. You know, if you have any leftover herbs from Thanksgiving, just chop them up, mix it with some mayo, a little garlic. I'm trying to think. I wouldn't,
That sounds good.
you know, you can always use, if you have leftover gravy, you can just dip it in that. I'm trying to think. A yogurt sauce might be good too, but I'd have to think on that a little. But Jenny, if you want to email me, I can think on that and get back to you if this is something you think you're going to do and you want to have a couple different sauces. You know what might be good too, like a butternut squash puree situation, kind of
Yeah.
like you're creating a hummus, but instead of chickpeas, you use butternut squash.
I
And you
love
can
all
add
this.
you can add a little tahini to that. That might be really good. I'm thinking out loud.
Off the top of your head, those are they all sounded equally as interesting and awesome.
Oh, someone said a blue cheese. So I'm a fan of blue cheese. So yes, cheese makes everything better. You could do a cheese sauce. You could do like a bechamel, like you're making a hot pretzel type sauce, something like that. I like this brainstorming session. This is fun.
It's awesome. And I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, but a lot of thank yous. So
Well, thank you. This is so fun. Oh yes, horseradish.
horseradish.
Or some sort of apple, like an apple jelly. My friend had a graze board recently, had some people over outside, and she had this huge graze board, and she had this mustardy apple jelly. No, it was a horseradish apple jelly. I think she got it at Whole Foods, and it was so good. And that'd be really nice. You could do like even a applesauce with this, with a little Dijon instead of using, honey mustard, maple mustard. This is great. Thanks, guys. All right.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, made my day. I love it.
Thanks, Jenny.
Such a fun way.
Now to clean up. Yes, sorry about that. Now that you have oil everywhere.
Clean up and enjoy. Hopefully you get to sit down and enjoy.
Yes, eat first and then clean up. Thanks, Karen.
That's always so fun. I agree. I love this.
Thank you. I love this too. And I'll keep doing them as long as, the Smith
We love having you.
team is into it. We can come up with something for winter.
That would be great.
The dead of winter, we'll come up with a little pick-me.
I like that idea. That would be wonderful. And thank you so much again, Kate. Thanks for sharing your talents with us and your time with us. And for everybody who is here today, and those who are watching on the recording, it's always a pleasure to spend an evening or an hour with Smithy. So I loved all the comments. Yeah.
Me
And
too.
Hope you all have a nice night and a nice weekend.
Thanks, everyone. And please do get in touch. I'd love to hear whatever you have to say. If you have any recommendations for my next class, if there's something you guys want to make, just let me know.
Yes. And the survey, there's an option to write into. So you can do that as well.
Okay, perfect.
And I can share that. Yeah, that would be great.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks,
Bye,
Ashley.
Kate.
Thanks, Smithies.